This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org, or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. My name's Melanie. I'm an exercise physiologist and nutritionist.
And my name is Kimberly, and I'm a registered dietitian.
Woo! Hello and welcome back, Kimberly.
Hello, thank you. Welcome back to you.
No, I always like these little recording sessions because we gap them a bit, but it's nice. It's nice to see you and chat with you. Not that I don't see you every week, but it's fine. I like
but
seeing
even
you
still,
again.
yes, agreed. Cherry on
it's nice.
top or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, we've been just having a wonderful time chit-chatting. We're trying to, discuss what would be really good for people to learn about. And one thing that Kimberly came up with that I thought was really good was sneaky calories.
Yes. Those little boogers, I was going to say, but
no,
it's those little sneaky things. Yeah.
A patient of mine gave me a little piece of paper she had printed out once that said calories are the little things that live in your closet that make your clothes tighter. I was like,
that's great.
That's not what they are, but I like it.
It's a good visual. That's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it would be a good topic to dive into because, one of the biggest things that's, being problematic for, I think probably the world at this point is just the abundance of calories we're getting in our food these days. Mm-hmm. And obesity and being overweight is becoming kind of a bigger issue than it once was. And so, getting to the crux of where the heck are these calories even coming from,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We know they aren't hard to find, and they're everywhere, right? In every corner of our market these days. So
yeah,
pantries, living area,
freezers, fridges, cars, drive-throughs. Yeah, it's
exactly
everywhere. Yeah,
everywhere.
So I guess, a good starting point here, I think first, I like to define things. You know this, everyone knows this. I love defining things. But one thing I like to define is what even is a calorie? Let's start there. What's a calorie?
Yes, heck yes. Calorie is our fuel, right? Cars can't operate with no gas. Human beings, we can't operate being gasless either. So that fuel source for us is going to be calories. So it's what provides us with energy to function, to think, to move, all that good stuff.
Yeah. And calories technically just a unit of energy, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which it's such an interesting concept because you think about stuff and you're like, a calorie. I'm like, you literally cannot touch a calorie. You can't touch it. It's the energy stored in something. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Science.
Usually something we consume in the form of food. So fats, carbs, proteins, alcohol, stuff like that. That's how we're consuming these calories on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly. And calories are not found in, things that are like vitamins, minerals, and water. But yeah, so our primary sources are what you just said, our macronutrients and our alcohol.
Yeah, I usually tell people if they have calories in their water, they probably should go figure out what the heck's going on because that's really weird. You should not have water with calories. That's weird.
No, yeah.
So, when we talk about sneaky calories, I guess a great way to get into this is what are some of the most common ways, I guess, that we could potentially get more calories than we desire in our diets without even realizing it? I mean, if that's too broad, we can narrow this down too. This is a big topic.
I know it is. Lots to dig into. One of the first things that comes to mind for me with that is kind of when you and I were pre-talking, the BLTs, right? The bites, licks, tastes, the things that
not sandwiches. Well, maybe sandwiches, but
that's true. Yes. But the sampling that we do while we're making food, or to me that also, I don't know if it ties into just in my brain, that also ties into grazing that we do throughout the day too. So we're oh, a little this here, a little that there. Let me grab this, munch there, to me that's sneaky because we don't think it counts, doesn't think it quite adds up, and then, we've usually get in enough where perhaps we should pay more attention to it.
Yeah. Funny that you mentioned that. A lot of the people that I've had discussions with over the last few weeks, one of the things I was mentioning was sometimes people don't count the food they eat in between meals because they don't think it counts because it's not a meal.
Ooh. So like snacks even? Like
yeah, like just if you're eating something that's not like on a plate, I guess apparently doesn't count. And I'm like, that's awesome. I wish that was reality.
Yeah, if only.
But I think that's a common thought process because like, I had a patient one time where they were really struggling. They were just not losing any weight. And I always love to give people the benefit of the doubt because, I want to believe that you're being honest with me. That's how I roll. Until you prove otherwise, I want to believe that you're telling me the truth. And they're just like, I just don't know why I'm not losing any weight. It's not coming off. I'm doing everything you're saying. I'm eating the right amount of calories. It's just not going. I'm like, gosh, and you're not having anything at all outside of what I'm telling you. Because, in my mind, I'm thinking, heck, if you're eating what I'm telling you to eat, not like food wise, but like calorie wise, and you're not losing weight, and I've run a composition on you and I know how many calories you should be having, you're either lying to me or you have a serious medical condition. And usually when I throw out the serious medical condition, it's where I get that honesty. Because they're like, well, okay. Well, maybe I have some wine and some cookies sometimes every day. And I'm like, exactly. So there's something else going on here.
Yes.
Sneaky calories. We don't register because it wasn't the meal, right? That wasn't structured.
That's a good point. Yeah, didn't take as much time to prepare, or like you said, didn't have it on a plate. The whole... Like
or
maybe
it's a
you
beverage.
didn't sit down, didn't eat it. Yes, maybe it's a beverage.
Yeah.
Exactly. Such a good point. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would have to agree. I think a lot of people fall into that same boat of just not recognizing that anything they consume outside of a meal still counts.
Yeah, still has calories. Yep.
Like all of our favorite samples at those big box stores that sell in bulk, we all know what I'm talking about. We walk through like, oh, I'll sample this and I'll sample that. And that starts to add up, right?
It does, yes. Those are not freebies just because, in calories anyway, just because they are small in size.
I think the best thing I ever learned was, if you were to say on average, each one of those booths is giving you 100 calories worth of a bite and you go to 12, just do the math on that.
Yeah, straight
it's
up.
a lot. It adds up very, very quickly, which is then you go out there and you get your hot dog later and go, woohoo, yay, I earned that.
Yeah.
It's like, did you?
Yeah, exactly right. And then how many times do you return back to the booth that was like good, right? And you get a second round.
It's free. Why not? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But the source of sneaky calories, 100%. It's stuff that you probably wouldn't even think because it was just a sample. It wasn't a meal. It was just a bite of this. I didn't track it. Why would you?
Right.
And I share a personal example because a long time ago, I had these roommates who they would buy in bulk a lot and they bought a bunch of like peanut candy, like peanut chocolate candy.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about. I won't say the brand, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
They're delicious and they're multiple colors. And they put it in a big clear jar, massive clear jar. And I'm really good personally with like, if someone says like, hey, this is my food, don't eat it. Cause you're sharing a space. I recognize that.
Right.
I'm not good when someone says, have at it. It's all you. If you want any, whatever. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I would find reasons to go into that room. I would be like, ooh, I have to check if I close the fridge, which is next to the room. Or, ooh, I have to pass through to twist the blinds closed. And I would just keep walking through the room and grab one or two candies every time I walked in. One or two. And, one or two, period, won't throw your day off. That's
correct.
That's good. When you do that 80 times, that's it starts to add up. A little bit.
It does.
Yeah. That's like several packages of candy that maybe you consumed.
Exactly. Yes. And I love that. It's so true. We don't count it because we're like, oh, I'm just going from here to there, gonna grab the thing, still on my feet, right? Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, easy peasy. Why would you think of it that way? That's silly. You're silly. Come on.
Don't be ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were mentioning other things too when we were chatting a little earlier, just kind of like a refresher thing. But, outside of just like little snacky snacks you might have at stores that are providing samples, there's more than one store that does samples. What are other things we could potentially be eating throughout the day and not even realize they're contributing calories?
Yeah, I think, one of those things, we mentioned it already so far, but those bites, licks, and tastes, right? While we're actually cooking or preparing food. Funny story. I had a patient one time tell me that, they were portioning out their protein. I believe they were having chicken, something like that. They wanted to weigh out 3 ounces, right? And had a little too much on the scale. So they cut the portion off to like get to the 3 ounces, and the portion they cut off, they ate. And then they looked at it and they were like, great, fabulous, 3 ounces. And went
That
through a
totally
little bit
works.
of doing that. Yeah, exactly. Caught themselves and they were like, oh my gosh, I've been having like all these little BLTs, as we call them, without like taking any credit for it. So, that's one that I find interesting. And that's like something you think about, like, you know, your grandma in the kitchen making soup, trying a little bit, right? Or whatever the case may be. Often that can add up.
I mean,
if you allow it.
As the resident cook in the room, as I'll say.
Yes.
I do encourage people to try their food as they're cooking it. Like, I think that's a really good technique and trick. Like, you should. Because, you know, you want to know what it's tasting like as you're cooking it. Otherwise, you might go, whoa, that's too salty. That was a mistake. So it's good to try things periodically. But I think we get into the problem when people try things a little too often. Like, ooh, that's yummy. Ooh, let me try that again. Maybe I didn't get a good first bite. Let's try like 6 more. And you end up eating essentially a dinner's worth of meals or food before you even eat your meal, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, doing it, like you said, to like try the recipe, do the thing, not bad at all. But it's when we're like, well, that was pretty good. I might have like a little hors d'oeuvre here. I
think I might personally attack some people if I say, if you're one of those people who grates cheese and like eats it as you're grating it, right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's an issue right there.
And that...
I was called out as being weird because I don't do that. Because I don't know why I've never done that. I don't know why I don't. I just don't. I don't think like, oh, let's eat this as I'm grating it. But I'll like mix it in and try it there. So it's like.
Right.
I have a different method of eating it later, you know? But
that's great.
It's 100% a big source of those extra calories. Don't realize, you know, if you're like taking little handfuls of cheese as you're grating it for something, cheese is really high calorie. It adds up very fast.
Exactly. And on that same note, even things like that are healthy for us, like avocado or nuts and seeds, you know, that kind of thing that is easy to eat. Well, avocado, not necessarily by the handful, right? But nuts and seeds are easy
like an
to
apple. You know, just do it.
Can you imagine? Oh my gosh. But still, like a little bit of avocado goes a long way. A little bit of nuts and seeds go a long way. Even though it's good, healthy calories for us, good, healthy fats, whatever. It still adds up. You know what I mean? Having a whole avocado is a lot different than having a quarter, or having, you know, a proper portion size of nuts is a lot different than having handful upon handful. So
yeah,
they add up. They're sneaky.
Yeah. Well, I've also seen, you know, and I love that you made that point with these healthy things that people are like, oh, but healthy. I'm like, yeah, but you can still have too much. Like, it does add up. And I'm not going to say you can't have avocado. I think it's delicious. I love it.
100%.
But if you get those jumbo avocados and eat a whole one for lunch along with other things, that a whole avocado is ranging anywhere from like 500 to 600 calories.
Yeah, depending on the size. Yeah.
So that like, and you may not even realize you're taking in that much. It's so much food.
Right.
And I think that's a dilemma a lot of us get into too. Because, you know, like I think we all have these little patient stories of like patients who suddenly discovered their portions were off the charts, you know? Like I have a patient that I was working with years ago, like long time ago, who wasn't losing any weight, couldn't figure out why, was tracking their food, writing everything down. And I saw the food logs, so I know and validated they were. I think the issue was they were lying about how much of the food they were eating and didn't even know it. Because they said they had been taking the same portion for so long, they could just eyeball it, right? And you like to believe, oh, well, you're a skilled person. Congratulations. I wish I could do that.
No kidding.
And when they finally sat down and measured how much of this item they were taking, when they were trying to take a quarter cup, they were taking a whole cup.
Oof. Yeah.
Portion distortion, right? We think we're taking less than we actually are.
Right. Exactly. Yes. And that's humbling. Like if you've never measured out your food using like whether that's a food scale or, you know, actual measuring cups and stuff, it's really interesting to see. Because, you know, I'm a peanut butter lover, and peanut butter.
Well, I think maybe people are allergic, I guess, but you know,
right. Yeah.
That's true.
But still, you know, a serving size of peanut butter, 2 tablespoons is nearly 200 calories, just about. And, you think, you know what 2 tablespoons look like? You know, and I measured it out, you know, when I was like being real strict with myself and tracking and whatnot. And, tumbling to see what 2 tablespoons looks like. And you're like, oh, that makes sense.
That was like literally the exact thought I had in my head. You probably went,
yeah.
I know I for sure am that person when I take like spaghetti pasta or something. I'm like, it has hair over the measuring cup, and you don't count what's hanging out of the cup. It's only what's in the cup, right?
Oh my gosh, I feel so seen. That's so true.
We all do it. And, you know, like when you take rice, you put a little extra on top, like inside.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
But that's sneaky calories. Like we're not counting that. It's worth paying attention to the portion sizes we take of things, because if you're eyeballing it, as much as you want to believe that you are accurate, I can assure you, you are not. Like they did a study, like I don't remember how long ago it was. It was when I first started working at Positive Choice, and they'd done the study where they measured how much food people were taking. It was like a food study. And so they had the group of just your normal population of people, just your average person, and then they had a group of dietitians. And so they compared those groups. They had the group of your normal people take a certain portion of food. So take a cup of this, take a half cup of this, take something like that. And then they had the dietitians do the exact same thing. Because, you know, logically you'd think, well, a dietitian sure the heck should know what they're doing, right? This is what they do for a daily thing. And they found out that the normal people who are just taking food were taking 30% more than what the portion was supposed to be, just by eyeballing it. Versus the dietitians, would you think the dietitians would be perfect?
I would not.
No,
but that's because I am one.
Yeah, it's like we're not. But you know, they would expect a better idea of portions because that's how they do daily. And they were still over, not significantly so, but 10% over compared to the normal population.
Okay. Yeah,
so
enough,
it's like
definitely.
We would love to give ourselves the benefit of like, oh, I can eyeball it. I do this every day. But I will assure you that your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And that's where we get these extra calories. Because if it's not exactly that portion, it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You're going to get more and more calories, right? Like that's just how it works.
Right. Exactly. Especially if you haven't, like maybe you've done it before. You've measured in the past. You know, you like got familiar with tablespoon, cup, whatever. But it's been a minute, you know, over time. As much as we like to think our memories are like super spot on, I think that we get a little more generous as time goes on. So just checking in every now and then and checking in on those portion sizes for sure.
Yeah. You know, if you're stalling out with weight loss, I can assure you it's not the exercise that's the problem as much as you want to say it is. It's not. It's likely you're taking too much food. That's usually what it is.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Those sneaky bigger portion calories, right? But
yeah,
there's still so many more ways of getting extra calories.
There are. I think of us just being overly generous with things that we don't feel like count that much, right? Like in our hearts, we're like, oh, this isn't bad. Whether that be like, you know, salad dressing, even if it's like light salad dressing or whatever. You know, sometimes we get those like little nut and cranberry mixtures or nut and like fruit mixtures that you throw on top of things, like a little bit of this. Yeah, I think the stuff that technically is like a condiment maybe is what I'm trying to say, or a topping.
Yeah.
Or like the oil you cook with, like stuff like that we don't think counts, but we can like glug, and next thing you know, we got too much oil in the pan, you know?
Free pouring is not the best idea. And I can tell you, like, with my husband, because, you know, I help out in the kitchen. He helps out in the kitchen. And so sometimes, like, hey, can you put some oil in the pan for me while I'm doing something? And I turn over and he has the jug, like, bloop, 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 bloop. Like, no, that's like a quarter cup. And it's not his fault because, you know, if you're trying to eyeball something, we always tend to do more than we intend to do. It's just
Right.
It's the reality of it, which sucks. It does. Like, I wish we were perfect, but, you know, we're not, because why would we be? That's silly.
That is, we'd be so boring if we were perfect.
We would be boring. So what are other sources of sneaky calories? Like, there's a lot of other ways we can get those in.
Yeah, there definitely are. Another thing I think of is anything that we deem in our heads, whether it actually is or not, we deem in our heads to be low calorie. So we have it in greater quantities, perhaps, right? Like, for example, popcorn isn't something that we tend to see as like loaded with calories, but maybe when you slap that sucker up with some butter and then you have, you know, the large or whatever, you know, like cups and cups and cups and cups of it.
My favorites are the people who air pop their popcorn and pour all that butter on top. And it's like, you air popped it to cover it with oil. Like, come on.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. So yeah, something like that comes to mind for me. What we add to our beverages, right? Like coffee, tea, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I always made the joke in person when I was teaching all my classes in person back in the olden times, BC, before COVID.
BC, nice.
Yeah. So I would always point to the wall and be like, as long as your coffee doesn't look like that, you're doing good. Because the wall would be white. It should, we don't want to make it so our cream has a little bit of coffee in it. It should definitely be the other way around, right?
Exactly. Or like our sugar has a little bit of coffee in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I know a lot of people who get those coffee drinks. You go to a drive-through, you can get them, or you make them at home, or they even sell them pre-packaged. Like you just pop a glass bottle and drink it. And where was I? I was at like the 99-cent store or something. And I was looking around, and I found a bottle of something, and it was like a coffee drink. I was like, oh, that would be kind of nice to have if I'm having a day. And I flipped it over, and it was like 32 grams of sugar and 300 calories. And I was like, no, thanks.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
More than my whole day's worth of sugar. Yeah.
I'm good. I don't need this at all. And that was the light one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It adds up. Like you wouldn't think you're drinking 300 calories worth of coffee, and then you do, or 300 calories worth of tea, and then you do,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the problem with coffee and tea specifically, of course, what we add to it, but then also like it's not the most common thing on the planet to just have one, Normally people are like pot of coffee a day, people, or 2 or 3 cups, and then one more in the evening,
I'm guilty. I have at least 2 a day, but
see, I love the smell of coffee. I can't get behind the flavor of it, but I like the smell.
Well, you're missing out.
I know. Trust me, I wish I liked it. Shoot. But yeah, it's just that it adds up for us, what we add to it. Definitely.
Yeah. And I do know a lot of people who also think, like sugar-free creamers or low-calorie, low-fat creamers don't count because they're considered light, but it's like one element of that is missing, but not the whole thing.
Correct.
I don't think a no-calorie, no sugar, no nothing creamer exists, because that would just be a bunch of chemicals, because what would that even be?
Exactly. Yeah.
I have more questions.
Yeah. Exactly. That's hilarious. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Definitely. And chime in here too, but there's some other things I think of when it comes to sneaky calories. Sometimes, like when we dine out, we know that we're gonna, intentionally have some food that we probably wouldn't cook at home, or like whatever, something a little bit nicer, a little bit more splurgy perhaps for a lot us.
I just talked about dining out yesterday with my class, so go for it. Let's do it.
Oh, did you? Nice. Yeah.
Ready.
I love that. So a couple things in that setting that I think of too is we don't necessarily think about or take into account always anyway, the chips and salsa that they bring to the table, or like the bread and butter, right? The little like freebie that comes in advance that gets you while you're like, perusing the menu. That definitely.
Oh yeah, big time. Because like I can attest that I am that person who has eaten all the chips at the table and felt bad and ordered more, and then proceeded to continue to eat those too. Doesn't work out well, because that's like 500 calories worth of chips. So
right, exactly, and that's like pre-meal coming. Some people still order appetizers on top of that and a full entree. And that kind of thing. So those feel sneaky, I think, because they're free. I don't know. It's because we didn't ask for them. They come and they're like, well,
who doesn't like something free?
I mean, truly. Free is my favorite number. So I get
free is my favorite number too, actually. The other thing I think of at restaurants too is, what we don't realize about restaurants, it's not to knock restaurants. Like, they're doing this intentionally to make money, because why not? They're a business, right?
Right.
But they want you back in the door. So they're going to be adding things to your meals that are going to encourage you to come back, because they're tasty. And one of the biggest issues with restaurant meals in general is fat. They use fat way more heavily in their dishes than you do at home. That's why when you eat vegetables at a restaurant, you go, wow, these taste better than I've ever made them. It's like, yeah, because they're doing way more oil than you would ever have added to your dish.
Yep.
And like an example is like fajitas, for example, because that's what I talked about yesterday. But, like if the plate is literally sizzling when it comes to your table, what makes the sizzle sound? Like it's definitely not air. Like,
yes,
it's oil. And oil has so many calories, and oil's not bad. It's just the amount you're receiving starts to add up, because a single teaspoon's like 40 calories.
Exactly. Same theory with like the nuts and the cheese, right? Not the end of the world. Some of that stuff's good for us, but yeah, a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah, and I always make people very mad when I'm like, don't eat like a handful of nuts. They're like, really? I just shouldn't like be barely holding on to it falling out? Like, no, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot of nuts.
That's so great. Barely holding on to it. That's amazing.
We've all grabbed that handful. You're like, I got it.
Oh, truly. Yeah. This is in my hand. It's fine. Yeah.
If I clench hard enough, the pressure will keep them together in this ball. But
defying gravity.
But it's just like I'm laughing, but these are the things that I've honestly totally done. Like, these are things I've definitely done before in my life.
Me too. That's why it's so relatable. It's all. And same with like, I've even maybe this is just me being a weirdo, but I've even taken bites of like other people's food, like off my husband's plate or my mom's or whatever, and I'm like, well, it came from their plate, not mine, so that doesn't totally count either, sampling other people's foods. I don't know, I just think that's a funny concept. So.
There's I've heard so many, like, if you stand in the kitchen, it doesn't count because you're not sitting. If you're eating with your eyes closed, it doesn't count because the eyes are closed. If the light's off in the fridge, doesn't count because the light's not on. Like, I've heard everything.
And if it's your birthday, it doesn't count because it's your birthday,
and it definitely still counts. But happy birthday.
But
yeah, and it's not to say we're not like knocking food. You can't have certain things. Like, that's not what we're saying. I think the main takeaway here is just being more aware of what you're putting in your body and how much you're actually eating by just paying attention to it. If it's going into your mouth, you're likely eating something, and it probably has calories, right? Even gum has calories. You don't even swallow that. Hopefully. Don't do that, by the way.
Yeah, don't do that. But exactly, right? Gum, mints, that kind of stuff. But no, I totally agree with you. It's, food's not necessarily the problem, right? I think it's the portion distortion, like we were talking about earlier. Like, absolutely have your nuts. You can definitely have some cheese. You can definitely like use oil when you're cooking, all that good stuff. We just want to be more mindful, more aware when we're like making the portion choice or putting it in our mouths or all of the above.
Yeah, exactly. And, the biggest trick I can say, first off, like, if you're not sure what's going down, and you said it early on, but like, track your BLTs, like, write everything down, every bite you take, in addition to whatever it is that you're eating. And that will give you some awareness. So you can be like, oh, well, that was a lot more than I thought I was consuming. Or, oh, I didn't realize I was eating as much of those as I thought I was, like, there's a lot of revelations we can get from this.
Yes. When you have to take credit for what you put in your mouth, it really changes that perspective for you. I really do believe that. And I'm a big believer that like tracking our food can be, when it's done like healthfully and stuff, is actually really beneficial. And I've stopped saying, track what you have for every meal and every snack. And I started saying, track everything that you put in your mouth from when you wake up to when you go to bed.
Yeah.
And that tends to help people kind of,
wrap their heads around that idea. Like, it's not just a meal that we're consuming extra calories during.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and don't forget to track anything you drink that has calories too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Truly. Even if you feel like it's, something fabulous, like you made a smoothie, fabulous. Track it though still, juices, all the things.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. And also being aware of calorie dense foods too. Sneaky calories don't just come in the form of like little things we eat and don't pay attention to. It can also be that are just really high calorie in general. So like when we did talk about the fats, the nuts, the cheeses, that kind of stuff, but oils included, knowing that their fat is a high calorie item, period. Stop.
Correct.
Like that's full stop. That's what it is. It's a high calorie item. And it's just recognizing that and being more aware of how much we're adding. And I think there is a little bit of a challenge with like this new fad and like, let's eat more fat, which is,
right.
everything you get is like keto now, which like, if you're keto, I'm not knocking it, but if you can do it correctly. But if you buy something that is labeled as keto because it's a diet product, that does not necessarily mean it is low calorie, because the whole premise of keto is high fat, which high fat means high calorie.
High calorie. Exactly. Exactly. Super agree with that. Definitely.
So paying attention to those things, the little words, those things.
Yeah, exactly. Just being aware, honestly, and not taking things, always at face value or leading with our hearts when we're picking our portion sizes. Same can be said for alcohol, right? Alcohol is pretty darn high in calories, as well, almost as high as fat. So, I think that's one that, you sip on some wine while you're cooking, or like when you're de-stressing at the end of your day, or whatever the case may be. So, keeping that in mind as well, is that those calories count too.
Yep. And, just to add to that, because I think it's important to mention, if you're sipping on some wine while you're prepping a meal, okay, because, some people do that, and you're more than welcome to. If you're over the age of 21, you are legally allowed to do so in America. So if you are doing that and you have not consumed food, one note is that you are now going to be getting tipsier or drunker faster, because there's no food to buffer you. And that means it messes with the reward centers of your brain and makes you want to do things that are a little less healthy as a result. So it can influence your behaviors and decisions, and ultimately lead you to eating more calories than you originally intended, because it messes with your judgment. And that's a known, well-documented thing that's going on with alcohol.
Right. That decision making is like dulled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, recognizing that's like, example could be you go to a restaurant and, they say, what would you like to drink? You're like, oh, I'd like a cocktail. Oh, like whatever you want to order, a beer, a wine, whatever. And you get that. And then you're sipping on that while hungry, staring at a menu, and it doesn't take long. It absorbs through your stomach lining. It's quick to hit the system. So within a few minutes, you might go, oh, nachos sound really good right now. And that's extra calories.
Right.
That's just what it's going to be, because I love nachos, but I don't really consider that a health forward food. And likelihood is you might eat more than you intended,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like popcorn or any form of chip. It's hard for us to stick to the, portion. But anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the one other thing I wanted to add to, if you're really trying to be diligent, not just measuring utensils, because like I watch a lot of like British baking stuff. You could probably get the show I'm alluding to. But the one takeaway I got from that show that I implement to this day is weighing everything. Weighing things is so much more accurate than putting it in a measuring cup, even so, because we've all done it, where you pack it into that measuring cup and get as much food in there as you can, and then you end up eating more calories than you expected. Whereas weighing something out will give you a much more accurate representation of what you're consuming. And likelihood is you're going to feel a little sadder seeing what you're getting.
Yeah, likely the portion is going to be a little bit smaller than what we would have done originally. But yeah, it's it's just more accurate, to be honest. Yeah.
And we don't want anyone to get obsessive or, whatever.
No.
But just recognizing, for example, if I'm going to be making, like, I'm making a lot of chickpea pasta, and the boxes obviously have a weight on them, how much it weighs, and depends on how many servings I'm making, but I weigh out the dry pasta. So if I'm making a serving for my husband and myself, only 2 servings, I'm doing 4 ounces dry, which means if I split it 50-50, I know exactly how much I'm getting. It's exactly that amount of calories. I don't have to stress.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point too, I think it's important just to note that, it's not something that you have to do with everything that enters your mouth all the time, always.
Not at
right? All. I think personally, it's a good, like for myself, periodic check-in, make sure that I am being honest, keeping my portion sizes as they should be. But I'd be lying to you if I said I measured every single thing that went into my mouth. You know what I mean? We don't have to, like you said, make it like an
obsession.
Like, exactly.
Yeah. And I don't want anyone to feel like that's the point I'm trying to make here, because I don't measure 100% of everything that I do either. And I don't think anyone does, because that's a little obsessive. I think, what a good way to go about it is you are doing the best you can. You measure everything out. You probably taper off after a little bit, as we do. And then maybe you notice, my weight's not moving much, or, maybe it's going up a little bit. That's the check-in time. That's where let's see how much I'm eating. Maybe something has changed.
Exactly. I love that. And it's important to, have those touch points for yourself, whether it's like stepping on the scale or seeing how your clothes feel or whatever the case may be, and catching it then, as opposed to letting it, you know, kind of snowball and waiting to catch it a year later or whatever.
Yeah.
That's an aggressive exaggeration, but you know what I mean.
I mean, I'm sure there are some people who've experienced that too. So
but true.
Yeah. But I mean, either way, there's no right or wrong way to approach it. It's just being aware, I think, is the big thing here. Be aware. Calories come in a lot of different ways into our system, whether we intend for extra to be happening or not. Tracking can be very helpful. So we do encourage that in any way that's healthy for you. So it doesn't have to be calories. It could be like checking boxes or like, I had this much or whatever.
Absolutely.
Make it so it doesn't feel overwhelming, because that's the last thing we want. But
Absolutely.
also, you know, just pay attention. Be mindful. Mindful is good.
Be mindful. Absolutely. Mindful's where it's at.
Yeah. We like mindfulness at Positive Choice.
We do. We're all about it.
But unfortunately, it's about that time. We must wrap up. We must go. So for all of you out there, lovely people listening to us today, what I would like you to say is make sure you like, share, subscribe, let your patients. You might have patients. I don't know. Let your people in your life know about this podcast. We always like to have more people listening. You don't have to live in San Diego to listen to us. You know, this podcast. You could be any country you want, any place you want, really. But with that being said, until next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.